I hope everyone gets a chance to grab some lunch, have a seat. Feel free to crinkle away. So thanks so much. Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Christina Masturzo, and I am the head of product over our patient engagement portfolio at Citeline. And I am really honored to be joined today by Shirisha Kanthala. She's the Associate Director at Incyte for Trial Transparency and Disclosure. And today we're going to focus our discussion on transforming patient engagement, and we're going to have a particular focus on how you can do that at scale. A quick legal disclaimer is that Shirisha and I are here today to discussing our own personal opinions and thoughts, and may not necessarily be the thoughts of our associated entities. So with that out of the way, let's jump right in. I think over the past few days, we've seen a lot of really interesting statistics. There's a lot of discussion around sponsors' inability to achieve their enrollment goals, to be able to do that on time, to be able to do that in budget. And I think, it's really difficult to look at such a complex industry with such a broad stroke. So what we wanted to do today, and I think someone mentioned it in the keynote yesterday, it can be a lot of like doom and gloom. And I think that there's a lot of really good things that are happening. So we wanted to look at what's working and what can we learn from that? And then how can we apply that at our own organizations and kind of do that at scale? So what we've seen is that over the last 10 years, more and more emerging biotechs are actually launching treatments on their own, when historically they were doing this really in conjunction with big pharma. So the question that I really have is how, right? Smaller companies are more traditionally strapped for resources. So how are they doing this? How can we learn from them? And what can we pull out of that? But before we jump into that, I think it's important to really dig in and understand the challenges that are faced from all companies, both big and large.
Thanks, Christina. Yeah, like as Christina said, like every one of us in the room know, the biggest challenge in conducting a clinical trial is to meet the enrollment goals. So the main reasons I know there are tons of reasons like why trials don't happen on time, but the main reason I think from my experience is a lack of understanding of the ongoing clinical trials in the general public, and also lack of awareness of how to find the clinical trials that are ongoing, and also mistrust in the pharma industry in general. So here you see some of the survey results from Citeline and SubjectWell. And when the survey participants were asked a question about how willing are they to participate in a clinical trial, you can see less than half of the survey participants are not willing to participate in a clinical trial. And when asked about their ability or confidence to find a clinical trial that they can participate in, that percentage dropped to 11%. And only 3% of the survey participants have ever enrolled in a trial. So as you can see, there is a huge drop in the number of survey participants, from willing to participate in a trial to actually participating in a trial. So the real challenge here is how are we going to bring that awareness of the clinical trials that are ongoing so they can make an informed decision on participating in a clinical trial. And once they have all the knowledge and education about the clinical trials, how are we going to make the journey smoother for them to enroll in a clinical trial? So the other challenges, most of the small to mid biotech companies face is also oftentimes we work with lean teams and also restricted on budget, timelines, and also infrastructure. So that doesn't mean we have all the time in the world to run the clinical trial. So we have to move fast, do more with less, and also spend wisely. So traditionally, how are we going to do this? So traditionally, what we do is we pick 1 or 2 vendors who have expertise in running a global clinical trial, and then in the disease-specific area that we are looking for. And then we work with them from study inception to study close. But how do we know that in this process that we have selected the right vendor? And the important question is, how do we know that we did not leave a vendor on the sideline who would have been more successful in our study than the ones we chose. So, and that's one of the challenges that we face. And also the other thing is there can be multiple clinical trials going on at the same time. So how are we going to bring that awareness about our trials, engage patients and also their caregivers and make them interested in participating in the trial? So this all leads to, like, one big question about bringing awareness into clinical trials. How are we going to engage the patients and make their journey smoother into enrolling them into clinical trials?
So that's a lot of challenges, and I think that they're growing, and I think that they are getting more and more complicated. So at Citeline, we've really spent the last several years working and partnering with sponsors to get a better understanding and in-depth knowledge of these challenges from the inside, so that we can build a solution that can really meet those needs and solve for many of those problems. And so what we've launched is Citeline Connect, which is a full end-to-end patient engagement and enrollment experience, which I'm sure you've probably heard a lot of that over the last few days. So what does that actually mean in practice? There's several different modules as part of the platform. And what we really start with is, how do you actually find patients? So first we go directly to patients. As Shirisha said, I think historically, sponsors will work with one or two recruitment organizations. And what the Connect platform really enables is what we call our recruitment collective, which is a series of over 90 different organizations that have been pre-vetted and pre-contracted that you can work with. So immediately you can expand the amount of patients that you're able to find. We also do this by going direct through HCPs. And so we utilize real world data. We utilize an opt-in network of healthcare providers to really better find patients and potentially even investigators. From there, we really aim to educate these patients so that they can make informed decisions and be really empowered to move forward with whatever direction they want. And we do this at a few different levels. So we really can start to do this at the full portfolio level through our trial portfolio sites. And that's much broader as far as your ability to share information on your transparency statements, your position on that, how you can educate across the entire portfolio about what trials are in general and what they might expect from joining one. We do it at the disease state level. So for sponsors that champion particular therapeutic areas of interest, we can really drive awareness around that particular space. And then, of course, we do it at the study level. So where can patients go to learn more about priority trials, how they can figure out what are the inclusion-exclusion criteria, and if those trials may or may not be right for them. I think it's really important to engage patients throughout the entire journey, and that means a lot of different things. Most recently, we've enabled sponsors with the ability to build their own community, which is an opt-in network of potential participants who are interested in learning more about trials, and we enable them to communicate in a compliant fashion out with the entire community. We've also thought, like, patients are different and they have different engagement tactics that mean more to them than others. So we offer chatbots and we also offer call centers because different people have different communication preferences. We also, through our partnership with ProofPilot, enable the ability for patients to schedule their appointments directly with sites to really reduce drop-off rates, as well as the EHR sync. And then finally, that's a lot of levers that I think can be overwhelming to manage and have the oversight and reporting around it. So I think where the rubber really meets the road with our solution is with the Enrollment Hub. The Enrollment Hub really allows you to view all of this in one place. You can manage all of your campaigns. You can manage all of your sites. You can view your pre-screener analytics, pre-screener responses, and that gives you direct insight as to where you can optimize. What are the various levers that you can pull and which ones should you? So again, that can be really overwhelming, but I think it's going to be really important to hear from Shirisha as to how we partner together to implement that.
Yeah, that's right. When initially, I heard about this end-to-end process, it was overwhelming to all of us. We thought, it takes a lot of time, resources, and also, a lot of um, time and resources from our end to build this, and also, it kind of too much to take in, so the quality might go down. So that's what we were thinking. So when we were thinking about our patient engagement and enhancing strategy, what we talked about is maybe we want to do the patient engagement in such a way that we want to look into the future. Patient engagement is not like a short term thing that we are targeting. We want it to be a long term. And you can, once you engage your patients and once you kind of educate them, you will see the fruition in the long term from patient engagement. So that's the reason we wanted to take a stepwise approach. So we kind of phased our approach. So when I would like to bring some analogy here. So whenever you want to build a house, it seems overwhelming, right? It's in terms of money and the effort that goes in, it's overwhelming. But when you take a phased approach, you lay your foundation, you lay your walls, and then the roof, and then you decorate, and then you'll have your beautiful home, strong home. But the home is strong only if the foundation is strong. So that's how we were thinking about this approach too. So we want to build our trial website, enhance our trial website to be more educational to the patients and their caregivers. So what we did with our trial finders website is we made it easy to navigate, easy to search, and also easy to understand, meaning we use the lay language where we can, so that patients and their caregivers can understand a specific disease area, or they can understand the study design. So once we have our trial finder website all done, then we focused on patient engagement. So we have hundreds of studies. So how are we going to make it easy for patients to find the trial that they can potentially participate? So in order to do that, we came up with series of questions that can easily match them to the right trial. So once we have that, then we took a step ahead. And then what we did is once we have matched the patient to a particular study, we should make it easy for them to enroll into the study. So that's where we brought in direct to site handoffs and also visit schedules with the site and electronic health record syncs. So we, as you can see, it's a lot to do, but when it's done in phases, it can be doable. Next one.
So I think it's important to see how this looks in action. So we put together a brief case study, and I think it's important to really understand the background of what Incyte was faced with and really what their priorities were. So maybe Shirisha, you can share that.
So we had about 5 global clinical trials that are ongoing around the same time, and they are all running in the same rare oncology indication. And the average age of the population at diagnosis is 65 years. So given the situation, we wanted to make sure that when a patient comes and finds a study, and if they are not eligible for the study, we don't want them to be disappointed, because we have other similar trials ongoing where they can be eligible to participate in. So in order to do that, we wanted to first of all, increase the awareness of the ongoing trials and also use the patient funneling. Maybe they are not eligible for one study, but they may be eligible for second, third, or fourth study. So we did not want them to get disappointed that they are not eligible for one study. And also, since I said this is a rare oncology indication, we, on top of the traditional recruiting vendors we had, we also wanted to add multiple vendors to drive awareness to these trials.
So when we started our conversations with Incyte, I thought that this was a really interesting and really exciting problem, one that I'm sure is not unique just to Incyte. Several studies being conducted in a similar time, lots of overlap, only nuanced differences. you don't want to then spend the same thing 5 times, right? So we really worked with them to try to see how can we benefit from economies of scale? Where can we find efficiencies? And how can we apply them more broadly across all of these studies? And that's really where we implemented the Citeline Connect solution. So at the beginning, we really were looking to increase awareness, and we did that much more broadly by activating the whole recruitment collective. So many partners recruiting across all of these trials at the same time. And then really to find where the nuanced differences were for patients, we implemented advanced trial matching. So this creates a better user experience for the patient because they don't know the difference between the trials. They don't know if they're supposed to go in this one or that one. And so once they were able to match to a study, we then passed them off to the site. Either the site reached out to them, or again, they did it through the patient scheduler.
Okay, I just want to talk about where we were compared to where we are now with this new solution. So basically now we have we are able to work with a lot more vendors that we were traditionally used to. So that can really drive the awareness of recruiting patients into these trials. And also with our enhanced web pages and trial finder website, we were able to educate patients and caregivers and also enable them with informed decisions to participate in the clinical trial. And as you all know, clinicaltrials.gov is a good source for all ongoing trials, but there are hundreds and thousands of studies there. So with the help of our trial finder website and with the help of the pre-screener questions, we were able to make it easy for the patients to see what trials they were able to potentially participate in. And also at the same time made the enrollment process easier once they were able to find a potential trial by site handoffs and also electronic health record syncs and visit schedules. And last but not least, by implementing all this process, we were able to also track the performance. So we were able to scale it up or down based on the performance. So that's an important thing.
So it wouldn't be a case study if we didn't report the results. And we looked at this through both a quantitative and a qualitative lens. If the initial goal was really to drive awareness around this rare oncology space, what we measured was of all traffic, how many visitors to the site actually moved on to learn more about this rare oncology space. And we saw that over 60% did, which is really high, again, for such a rare space. You see it start to move down as far as how many of those pre-screened. But again, I think that that's a natural statistic for the rare disease that we were looking to raise awareness for. We were also able to share this information throughout a broad range of ages and geographies. And then we have a dedicated patient advisory board that we shared this with, and we had them go through the experience, and we asked specifically about their ability to find trials, and were we really able to achieve the goals that Incyte had set out to do. And I think it's really important what their feedback was, right? It's easy to search and read. If so many of the potential participants can't actually find studies, which was the original stat that Shirisha reported, I think it's really important that we're able to ease that burden and reduce some of that friction to find studies. The pages were clean and appealing, which again goes back to that goal of engagement and being able to find what you need quickly. And then I really liked what one person said, which is that the pages have empowering language. If we're really aiming to educate patients, really understand what being in a trial is like, and being able to make informed decisions, I think that feedback really supports that goal. So what are the key takeaways of all the things that we really shared today? If this is kind of what you remember from today's discussion, I think it'll be helpful. I think it's an incredibly challenging climate. I don't think that those challenges are going to get easier. I think the complexity is going to continue to rise. And scaling is going to be really important. Use your time, money, and resources wisely, and scale where you can. A lot of times we want to throw more resources at the problem, and sometimes that'll just sink your ship faster. So I encourage you to scale. Centralize. While decentralized trials are get a lot of discussion and a lot of feedback, it is really hard to string together reporting from a variety of different outlets. So centralize where you can, especially when it comes to how you report, both internally and externally. Third, I think it's okay to fail. It just means that you're trying. It means you're trying something new. It means you're innovating, and learn from it and be nimble and agile enough to pivot and move on and use what works and leave what doesn't. And then finally, I think being able to stand out in such a space that only has more and more activity, it can be overwhelming. It can be complicated to go through and wade through, both from a user standpoint as well as from a sponsor standpoint. I think there's a lot of opportunity to stand out among the rest. And the last thing I'll say is really, this was a really collaborative effort with Shirisha and the team, and really just want to thank you for trusting us with that. I'm really happy with where we ended up. So thanks so much for your time today, and I'll open up the floor to any questions if we have time. Yay, okay. Yeah.
That's it. I got nothing. You had mentioned a couple times problem solving, the hurdle of scheduling participants. You even put, I think, avoid playing phone tag up there. I've been doing this for a long time and been trying to solve for this, and there's always integration issues. Sites are using different, calendar tools, and how do we tie into those APIs? How do we get their open calendar slots and so on? So just curious how you're addressing that, what you're doing to kind of meet that need.
Yeah, it's a really great question. I think that challenge of integrating with a lot of different mail systems is one that I've reviewed a lot before. And our answer actually was we partnered there. That was something that we found was already solved for in the market. And so we partnered there with Proof Pilot. Any other questions? Awesome. Thanks, everyone.